Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning, Dr. Rubin. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Mufai. Let us start today's global brief with some confusion over the next debate between the presidential nominees from the Democratic and Republican parties over in the United States. Now, the presumed Democratic presidential nominee, Kamala Harris, says she's ready to debate Trump, but we may have to wait a little while longer before one is confirmed. Now, the Trump-Vance campaign released the following statement, and they say, given the continued political chaos surrounding crooked Joe Biden and the Democratic Party, general election debate details cannot be finalized until Democrats formally decide on their nominee. That is what their campaign manager, Steve Chung, claimed. He went on to say that there is a strong sense by many in the Democratic Party that Kamala Harris is a Marxist fraud who cannot beat President Trump, and they are still holding out for someone better. It's, of course, citing former President Obama's lack of endorsement to date, though Obama is expected to publicly back Harris soon. Going back to that statement, therefore, it would be inappropriate to schedule things with Harris because Democrats very well could still change their minds. Now, the Democratic National Convention is yet to happen. It will take place in Chicago between August 19th to 22nd. But Harris has accused Donald Trump of backpedaling, especially since he had already agreed the date for two debates with President Biden, the one on June 27th. That debate, as we all know, was what led to the beginning of the end of Biden's re-election downfall. And then another one on the 10th of September. And that's the date which Vice President Kamala Harris says she has already agreed to do. And so she thinks the voters deserve to see that split screen that exists in this race on a debate stage. And so as she says, I'm ready, let's go. If we take a look at a post on X, formerly known as Twitter, Kamala Harris quote tweeted asking, well, what happened to anytime, any place? That was in response to Sam Steen's tweet where he says Trump camp says he's backing out of debate. And in response to that, Kamala Harris says, well, what happened to anytime, any place? She says she's ready. Now, there's also been some back and forth over whether the next debate should be hosted by ABC, as previously planned, or by Fox News, which may well be unlikely. If we now move on to Israel's war in Gaza, Kamala Harris has held what she called frank and constructive talks with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Striking a tougher tone than President Joe Biden, Ms. Harris said that she made clear her serious concerns about casualties in Gaza, telling Mr. Netanyahu how Israel defended itself mattered. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
So I just had a frank and constructive meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu. I told him that I will always ensure that Israel is able to defend itself, including from Iran and Iran-backed militias such as Hamas and Hezbollah. From when I was a young girl, collecting funds to plant trees for Israel, to my time in the United States Senate and now at the White House, I have had an unwavering commitment to the existence of the State of Israel, to its security, and to the people of Israel. I've said it many times, but it bears repeating. Israel has a right to defend itself, and how it does so matters. Hamas is a brutal terrorist organization. On October 7, Hamas triggered this war when it massacred 1,200 innocent people, including 44 Americans. Hamas has committed horrific acts of sexual violence and took 250 hostages. There are American citizens who remain captive in Gaza. Sagi Deko Hen, Hirsch Goldberg, Poland, Idan Alexander, Keith Siegel, Omer Nutra, and the remains of American citizens Judy Weinstein, Gad Haggai, and Itai Hen are still being held in Gaza.
Well, Netanyahu is due to meet the Republican presidential nominee, Donald Trump, on Friday. Now, Dr. Rubin, Ayo, Rufai, what are your thoughts on the American side?
Of course. I don't mind. But very important updates. People are asking, why is President Donald Trump running away from a debate, as it seems? But, I mean, fair enough to him, despite what could be described as a weak position in terms of a reason for backing out of a debate. The truth is that the debate was meant to happen in September, and the the Democratic Convention is in August. So by the time of the debate, it would have been very clear as to who the nominee was. I wish, if you were being honest, he had said, okay, because we don't know who, exactly who's going to be the flag bearer, we will hold on, but we'll be willing to debate the flag bearer that same day. If it's Kamala Harris or whoever emerges, but it looks very much like it's Kamala Harris. She's already said she secured the number of votes required, at least, I promise. And then I didn't know when he became, when Barack Obama's words, former President Barack Obama's endorsement became so huge for him. I mean, he'd always just swept him aside and pushed him away. All of a sudden, the entire, nomination or assumption or definite confirmation of Kamala Harris as presidential candidate of the Democrats is dependent on Obama coming out to endorse her. I hope if he does endorse her, he will backtrack and say that he's now willing to debate her. What we want to see is a Kamala Harris, President Donald Trump debate. We'd love that to happen.
I want to say something. Trump, why are you running?
He is running.
Like they say in Yoruba, Kamala is a goddamn good debater.
Yes, she is.
I watched her debate in the last elections with Pence. Mike Pence is a very good debater. Mike Pence was former radio host. Very good debater. She finished him with her prosecutorial style, took the issues, destroyed Mike Pence in that debate. So Donald Trump knows what he has coming. That's why he's running. Because things like his New York case, she's going to press it. Because Donald Trump has been running around. In fact, recently I heard he sued Stephanopoulos of ABC because that one said during an interview that, it was what he did was tantamount to rape. So he sued for defamation and all of that. So he's running because she will press him on that, press him on abortion. She knows the facts. She knows the laws. Did you see what Kamala did to Brett Kavanaugh when he was doing his Senate hearing? Jesus Christ. He's running. But it also shows that the Democratic Party did the right thing by swapping Biden. You can see the gusto back in the Democratic Party. You can see what is back in the race and all of that. But most importantly, I think the Obama talk, Obama will be the one to unite the party after all of this is said and done. In fact,
so you think he's intentionally waiting before he endorses her? Because do you think he'll do it at the convention?
That's what all the sources. Who are my sources? MSNBC, Joe Scarborough and Mika.
Right.
They have top Democratic sources. They are the sources. That's it.
Okay, there's a standing agreement between both parties that there will be a debate on June 27, and that happened. And we have seen at that June 27 event the difference that a debate can make. A debate, just one debate, has changed the calculus, the dynamics in 2024 U.S. presidential election. The agreement also says there will be a debate on September 10, again by ABC this time around. The June 27 one was by CNN. Now President Trump says, well, I can't do that debate yet until the Democrats have their nominee. Okay, you can say Kamala Harris is a presumptive nominee at this moment, but you have President Trump throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, at the Democrats. Calls Kamala. I think one or two people around this table also call Kamala, even when the woman has corrected that her name is Kamala. It's not Kamaru. Okay. But in any case, you have this situation on your hands. I think, Trump is probably one, dissing the Democratic Party, and also second, knowing that it will not be very easy with Kamala Harris, who is a former Attorney General, a prosecutor. And it will be like being in a courtroom between a convicted felon, which President Trump is, and then a prosecutor who end as spouse as a prosecutor. But I don't think he can run away from it. And he himself has said he's waiting to engage with Kamala Harris, even if he thinks that she's a lunatic, even if he goes about saying that he's crazy. But Kamala Harris is on a roll. She has not only energized her base, I think that her press briefing after our meeting with Netanyahu yesterday, she also, struck the right notes, even if, again, she reflected America's, double-handed, amphibious, approach to the Middle East crisis by saying, on one hand, he expects Netanyahu to complete the ceasefire deal. Even Lapid, the leader of the opposition in Israel, is criticizing Netanyahu for that. But at the same time, she also says, well, America is committed to providing support for Israel. So, which is the amphibious, position of America in the matter, even if it is hypocritical. But she was one of the 80 persons who boycotted Netanyahu's address in Congress, and Nancy Pelosi too, and also Bernie Sanders, the independent who caucuses with the Democrats.
Well, thank you very much for your comments then. Let's move on to our news headlines from across the globe, and we'll begin in Nigeria with This Day newspaper. The cover of This Day newspaper looks at how President Tinubu has spoken and met with traditional rulers as well as clerics who have mobilized against these hardship protests. The Oba of Benin, the Oni of Ife, and Ifenifere also call for caution. Well, I guess that's even after the publicity secretary I think we had on the show yesterday.
Yeah,
one faction rather. Said that he was in support of the right to protest and of the need to protest. So there is that. If we now move on to the Punch pictures President Tinubu meeting with these traditional rulers in Abuja yesterday. And the article, the headlines also go on to discuss how opposition voices are calling on Tinubu to address Nigerians directly, which is exactly what you have all been saying for the duration of this week. Instead of mobilizing and having conversations with other politicians and traditional rulers, perhaps the one party you've left out might be the most important. So that is the Punch. If we now move on to The Nation is looking at the economy. Finance Minister Wale Edun says that Nigeria's economy is growing faster on reform gains, and he goes on to mention debt service and how it's dropped from 97% to 68%. He also says the federal government will begin the first issuance of a dollar-denominated security of $500 million in the next 3 weeks. Daily Trust also picks up on this story, and they go on to discuss. Well, on the one hand, Tinubu saying that though he joined... Okay, we're jumping here, but the Daily Trust I'll quickly take. It talks about how Tinubu admits that, yes, he does understand protest and he did participate in protests in his prime, but the protests that he participated in were not violent in nature. If we now move back onto Business Day, and linking onto the story I was discussing earlier about the economy, on the front page of Business Day, it reports the government is eyeing the foreign currency held by Nigerians abroad in order to stabilize the Nigerian economy. Now, depending on the success of that issuance I mentioned earlier, the government has no plans of raising bonds from the international market. If we look now at The Guardian is looking at the Niger Delta, the Niger South-South. The caricature sees a native of the South-South, obviously in despair, water tainted by oil, and then in the background you've got commission leaders or commission entities carrying a lot of money into the backs of trucks on their way out. So the article goes on to discuss how regions and citizens are languishing amid proliferation of political SPVs. These SPVs refer to special purpose vehicles which have been designed to ramp up the development of the Niger Delta region, but instead the Niger Delta Development Commission, according to this article and to many others, is signposting how not to develop a region. It also goes on to name its cousin, the Northeast Development Commission, and says both commissions allegedly violate procurement laws, inflate contracts, and award non-existing contracts, which further highlights the murkiness of Nigeria's oil industry. We take a look now at our African papers, and the Daily Nation of Kenya, again, is looking at this rift, or this coming together, rather, of Raila Odinga and William Ruto. Now, this Raila move fuels the Azimio breakup. Opposition leaders are unhappy in Kenya with the former Prime Minister's decision to work with the government. The joining of forces between Raila Odinga's ODM with William Ruto's Kwanzaa alliance has sparked an implosion in the Azimio La Umoja coalition after NARC Kenya, the party of Odinga's running mate in the 2022 elections, signals an exit from this union. Let's take a step outwards now and look at international papers. And The Guardian is revealing that the UK's Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is set to reveal a £20 billion shortfall in public finances. It does sound as though she's setting the scene for a hike in taxes, and that's something that we knew was going to happen with this new Labour government. And then further, talking about Labour, on the front page of the Daily Mail, Labour's £300 green energy bill saving is a lie, according to the Daily Mail. And many people who have said that these switches over were supposed to save money in people's bills, and clearly that has not yet happened, if at all. So those are our international papers. My friends, where would you like to begin?
I'd like to start on Kenya first.
Okay.
I think we've said enough said about Nigeria and all of that. I'd like to start on Kenya. The problem is, and I see a pattern, the last election, Raila Odinga, when he didn't get his way, in the last days, he pivoted towards Kenyatta. They had a deal. The deal was Kenyatta supporting him in the last election. He didn't make it. Now, he's looking for a top job, I think, in one of these, I think, intergovernmental institutions in Africa. And is also gradually pivoting towards...
The African Union?
African Union, yeah. Is also gradually pivoting towards... what's it called government now, William Ruto's government. It's as if Odinga uses these things to look for deals for himself. And that's why people in the Azimio, camp are very upset. Right. People like Martha Karua, she's upset and she says she's going to leave it. So what's the essence of the cause itself in the first place if you now use all of your election runs to be able to look for deals for yourself? This was after when you first led the first protest, and people also were hurt in that first protest. As regards the state of the economy. So are you saying all of a sudden you Odinga? Are you saying all of a sudden everything is good in the Kenyan economy now? Mm-hmm. And you're trying to do a deal? And see, a lot of people keep making false. Let's get the facts right. The reason why the protesters have not left the streets is because Ruto has not done what they said. They said they want people with integrity. Recently, he brought in a guy with corruption and drug charges before, former governor of a region, to serve on his cabinet. Yeah. That's what the people don't want. Right. So he's still trying to philander and all of that. And if you don't do what the people want, they will never leave the streets. So it's not that the people are recalcitrant, they don't want to leave the streets. You are not doing what you ought to do. Pure and simple.
All right, so let's talk about that report by the Guardian newspaper, front page of the Guardian newspaper, with regards to SPVs for development commissions, like the NDDC, Northeast Development Commission. And the fact that what the people are saying is that despite the amount of money that is being put into these commissions, they don't see the effect of this. And isn't this what we have? We often talk about bodies like this that are created where there's no transparency, no effect. Yes, projects are done here and there, but it is not commensurate to the amount of money that they receive. And it's important. And that's why, as it said, as you mentioned, it's murky, it's dark, it's opaque, right. It's not transparent, accountability. I'm hoping that this new, relatively new leadership of the NDDC, Dr. Sam Ogbuku and his team, would take this up as a challenge. When we hear reports like this or we see evidence, because pregnant women, they interviewed pregnant women, they looked at the road construction and cited a 25-kilometer road construction and how usually they either don't finish or it's substandard, then they should look into these matters and see what went wrong in the past and hopefully not to repeat the same mistakes. What is the procurement process for awarding of contracts? Who are the people who get these contracts, and to what extent do they have oversight to ensure that they actually finish the contracts? Right. 1 trillion naira was recently secured by NDDC, or at least it got Senate approved for them to be able to obtain these loans. It's supposed to go into a number of projects that should benefit the people of the Niger Delta region. Let's hope, and with openness, that it will be transparent, and that we would actually see the benefits of these monies that are being pumped. If not, let's do away with these commissions if they're not fulfilling their purposes. Exactly.
Okay, quickly, I would like to talk about the papers from England. Now, I think it was The Guardian you quoted, about Rachel Reeves.
Yes, it was The Guardian.
Now, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, she has instituted a probe, an audit of the Treasury. And next week, she's going to give a comprehensive statement about their plan for tax cuts, to prepare the grounds for tax cuts in autumn. Now, I find that very interesting because she has criticized Jeremy Hunt and the Conservative Party. And she's saying that, look, public services have been left in a very terrible state. Either the NHS or asylum plans or the prisons or other services within, Britain. But you know that despite the fact that they are doing that treasury audit, the black hole they are talking about, they are not talking about money disappearing into the pockets of Jeremy Hunt.
True. That's very true.
If it was in Nigeria that you were doing an audit or a probe of the former administration, yes, you will blame the proper administration, but you will be looking at people's pockets and bank accounts. On the health side, we're Streeting, I think that's the name of the guy, in charge of health. He is also complaining about the NHS. They are doing an audit of the NHS. And he's saying that the Quality Commission, the Care Quality Commission, CQC, has not been doing his job for 10 years, which means that, again, they are blaming the Tories for the problems that you have in the NHS. Right. But they have not said somebody made away with money for contracts or for awards. So you see how different the British system is from our own. If it was here, you will be talking about that black hole, and you'll be looking for that black hole in people's...
would you find it in their accounts? Would you find it there?
With due respect, in COVID, people stole money in Britain.
Absolutely. That's actually...
No, that's global.
They stole money.
Within the United Kingdom as well, the people who procured face masks
and when you look at this audit,
yes.
the truth is, they will not link it to politicians' account. They will link it to their cronies. That's just it. So they have a way of stealing too in Britain.
It was the abuse of the contract award system.
Right.
No, they stole money.
Abuse of influence.
People didn't deliver.
Using their husbands to collect government privileges. But it was a global thing. COVID was a big racket all over the world, even for the pharmaceuticals. Even here in Nigeria, where we have not probed all the monies that the billionaires donated.
Yeah.
Off your mic.
That's the difference.
What do you mean off my mic?
Off your mic.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.